Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Dan Jury. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Now, I know you're also a DOC of a club there in Michigan. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm one of the directors of Cap City Athletic, 1847, right here in East Lansing, Lansing, Michigan.
Okay, awesome. Well, and some of you might be asking, okay, Matt, why are you putting a DOC on Discover College Soccer for interviews? But you are also a college coach in a different way. We're gonna inform some people of a different kind of college soccer today. You are the women's club soccer coach at Michigan State, right?
Correct. Yep, been
All,
doing that for, boy, it's I think going on 20 years now.
oh wow. Okay. Well, then you're a perfect person for this interview and can help folks learn a little bit about club soccer. I think if you start it, so that means if you've been 20 years, that means you've been coaching since about when I stopped playing club soccer. So for folks that don't know, can you just explain what club soccer is at a Division One school?
Yeah, I think in most cases, and I really haven't looked at the structure at a lot of other schools, but in most cases, it's part of the intramural department. Um, and then depending on which school you're at, the level of competitiveness can vary quite a bit. Um, Even within our own division here in the league that we play in, there's a big disparity in competitiveness from top to bottom. So at Michigan State, we're part of the intramural department. It's a very competitive team. We just started a second team 2 years ago now, right after COVID. So we've got that option to bring in more players now, have two different really types of teams and teams that are looking for, or players that are looking for something maybe a little bit different between the two. So,
So and so folks know, most folks know I played Division Three college soccer back in the late 90s, but I also played a year of Division One club soccer when I was in grad school, obviously on the men's side at Ohio University, which is another D1 institution. I don't think we actually played Michigan State when I was there on the men's side. I know we
now that's
play
a real Ohio University, right?
the real Ohio University, the one that's
Because
green and white, the one that was founded before the other one, and the one that doesn't have a complex.
here in the state of Michigan, there seems to be some confusion on what the two different schools are called. The school down the road from us,
Yeah,
the other school as Ohio. So
yeah,
just want to
yeah.
make sure we're all clear on that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. We have similar colors as you. We're the green and white. We're Bobcats. It's all right. But so as you said, it's in the intramural department. Um, so in terms of the governing body, then, and again, I know the answer to this, but it's not the NCAA, right?
Right.
Who's running club soccer when it comes to your league, national championships, all those kinds of things?
Yeah. So, like I said, we're part of the intramural department, but then we're part of, at least here in the Midwest, there's a league called the WMASC, the Women's, um, I believe it's Midwest Athletics Soccer. I, I'm going to get it wrong. It's changed a few times, but the WMASC runs a regional league, which includes Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois. Um, I believe that's it. And then that's broken into four separate divisions: north, south, east, west. I believe. I think one of them is actually Great Lakes. Yeah, Great Lakes, north, east, and west. Um, then above that, you've got a national organization called NERSA that oversees all club sports collegiately. So it's not just soccer. They run national championships for all the different club sports that are out there. Um, but we don't really deal with NERSA unless we make the national tournament. So we go through our regular season, which is put on by the WMASC. They host a regional tournament at the end. The division winner, division winner and second place from each of the four divisions makes regionals, along with the next four highest power ranking teams. From regionals and then through the accumulation of power ranking points throughout the season, we usually send 4 to 5 teams out of our region to nationals. The number of bids is different within different regions. Different regions select their national qualifiers different ways. But at least for ours, it's a power ranking system in regionals.
Okay. So in terms of, you know, I mean, you mentioned a lot of schools there that you would play. I'm looking at your schedule and all that kind of stuff, and you're playing other big time schools. You mentioned Ohio State, you know, Iowa, the other Michigan school, whoever it may be. But what is the commitment level like? Because, you know, everybody talks about if it's D1, it's really your job. It's, you know, in a lot of ways, you're an athlete first and then you're a student. But what is it like being a club soccer player?
Yeah, I think again, that's something that's going to change a lot based on which school you look at. So I think I prefaced it by saying if you're interested in club soccer, you really have to do your homework just like any other prospective student athlete and seeing what that school offers in terms of what their club soccer program might be like. But I think ours is fairly standard, maybe not a great word, but we train 3 days a week. We have tryouts at welcome week. I'll start at the beginning. We have tryouts at welcome week. We typically will start play that first weekend after Labor Day in the fall. And then our league games will continue through mid to late October, followed by regionals. And then nationals are the Thursday, Friday, Saturday prior to Thanksgiving week. And that's where all the teams from across the nation are coming together for that same event. There are some lower levels of club soccer as well. Like our second team doesn't play in the same conference as us and doesn't have the ability to go to nationals. They're in a separate all Michigan league. But we train 3 days a week in the fall, which is our primary season. We train twice a week in the winter, indoors. We're fortunate enough to get the indoor football building field once a night or once a week. And then we have a smaller turf room that we can use on campus as well for a second night. And then in the spring, which is typically from spring break till just prior to finals, we'll train twice a week, play some friendlies against smaller varsity teams. And then this year we're hosting a tournament for the first time as well. So we're bringing some teams in to have a little bit more of a spring season.
Nice. Now, in terms of the game schedule, as you mentioned, like the main season, what's that like? And how is the team? When are the games? How's the team traveling? What's the whole kind of season look like?
Yeah, so for us here in the Midwest and in our conference, it's typically, I think most teams are trying to play like a Friday, Sunday schedule. Get some games on Friday evenings against the teams that are fairly close. Do Sunday games. We try to avoid home football games. You know, the girls that are playing for us are coming to Michigan State because they liked Michigan State as a school, and this is where they wanted to be, whether it was the size of the school, the majors that they offer, whatever else it might be. Soccer wasn't number one because a lot of these players could be playing varsity at a number of different programs. So we try to keep a Friday, Sunday cadence as much as we can. Our travel, we're fortunate here in our division that we don't have a ton of travel. I think all of our teams except for 2 opponents are here in Michigan. Team travel for us at Michigan State, at least, is all up to the players. So it's players driving to games and carpooling to games, things like that. Some schools have the use of their university vans. We'll see a lot of that more at the regional tournament where they'll be able to take a university van there, or 2 of them. Don't see that quite as much for the individual games. We're also fortunate that within our region, even when we're playing out of our division where we might have to go to Madison for regionals or, down to maybe Ohio State, we can still make those as a day's drive and not have to fly anywhere. The only time we fly is to nationals. And that's where things start to get a little more expensive for players. The airfare's on them, hotels are on the players. It's all pay to play for the players. So that's where the expenses kind of come in there.
Well, that was going to be my next question was about money. So it's a pay to play model, and of course nobody's getting an athletic scholarship to the school or covering any kind of tuition or anything like that, right?
Right. Yeah, we're not part of the athletic department. in that regard. So there's no athletic money. I can't do anything to help with academic scholarships either. I'm not an employee of the university. I did this for a number of years, probably the first 15 or so years as a volunteer. And then at one point, the girls decided to start paying me on their own and give me a small stipend at the end of the year. In no way am I speaking for Michigan State during this. I should probably qualify that so I don't call later or a cease and desist letter in the mail. But no, I think again, I think we're fairly standard across the landscape in that the average annual dues are probably around 300 for the year. And then that will go up if we go to nationals because you would get your own airfare. We'll put 4 girls in a hotel room. So we'll divide each hotel room by the 4 players and things like that. And then the cost of the uniform obviously is on the players.
Okay. Well, in terms of the players themselves, I mean, how many people are coming out for tryouts? What's the background of some of the girls on the roster? I mean, you mentioned it earlier, a lot of these girls could probably be playing at other college programs, so kind of what does that level look like as someone who is the DOC of a club and has seen a lot of kids coming through and playing at different levels?
Yeah, roster makeup's all over the place. I've had D1 players transfer to Michigan State and play club instead of trying to play with the varsity team here. And we've had players that just this year we have a freshman that came in that was committed to play at Xavier, but then after an ACL injury, kind of reprioritized some things and decided Michigan State was where she wanted to be, and all the way down to we are just losing a 6-year player for us who never played club soccer growing up. She was a tremendous basketball player, cross country, volleyball, did all the sports in high school, was from a small town, but she's been a 4-year contributor for us. In the last really 3 years has been a starter and been tremendous for us. So it's all across the board, but the majority of the players are coming from strong youth programs at our level. And then could have been playing, anywhere D1 to D3, NAIA, junior colleges, things like that. So we've also had a number of players that have come to the club program and then walked on to the varsity program. So it's a good middle step. We had one player that transferred from Ferris State, played for us for a year, and then walked on that winter. I should say, played for us for a season, and then walked on that winter to the varsity team here. So, it's another opportunity to kind of continue to develop and grow, maybe even showcase the varsity coaches at that school, what you can do and prepare you for a winter walk-on opportunity.
Yeah, and actually that happened to me or one of my high school teammates. We were a pretty good high school program, and he was a year older than me, and he says, "I'm going to Indiana." And I mean, this is during the Indiana heydays, and it's like, okay, you're good, but you're going to Indiana. I don't know. That he wasn't recruited to go to Indiana. He played a year at club as a sophomore, made the varsity team, and was team captain and national champion his senior year. So it's definitely something that can be done.
Same thing with on our men's side. We're close with our men's program, and they had a kid transfer in, play with the men's team for a while, prepare for walk-on tryouts, and he's on their varsity team now. So,
well, I mean, and besides the obvious differences, right? You're not training every day. It's not you're paying for your own stuff. You're no weekday games really, unless it's a Friday night or tournament stuff. It truly is kind of that next step down in terms of commitment. But like you said, it's not necessarily the next step down in terms of level of play in a lot of instances. But what would you say would be the primary benefits for a student, or what have the players said to you in terms of, I mean, you've been doing it for a long time. What have they gotten out of it? What have they enjoyed specifically about the club environment that maybe they're not going to get either at the higher level varsity or even at the lower level, just intramurals?
Yeah. So, I don't want to disparage anybody because I think everybody is looking for their own thing. Right. And if you're being mentored well in the college recruiting process, you're being told to find the right fit. regardless of division, regardless of governing body, whether it's NCAA or NAIA. So it's really about fit, and the players that we've had transfer back from Division I programs and play for us, it wasn't a knock on that program they left. It was more about what Michigan State as a school could offer, whether that's being closer to home, whether it's a major that they wanted, whether they got to a program, whether it was D1 or D3, that it just wasn't a good fit. They didn't want the everyday training. They realized, they didn't want to have to pretty much give up their life in the fall to that sport. They wanted to be part of a sorority. As much as I tease our girls that go to the sororities, but a business fraternity as well. I've had a player missing some practices the last couple of weeks because of a business sorority, our business fraternity. Again, the major. You may not get to a school to play soccer that has the major that you really want, so you're going to have to move on. So wherever that is in your process, whether it's prior to enrolling at a school or whether it's after your sophomore year, and whether it's for like you did, coming back after your 4 years and getting a master's degree somewhere, hey, I'm going to finish up here and play 2 more years. And we've had that as well on the women's side. So it's really about fit, and it's what, as a youth club director, constantly talking to our players about, all right, we're removing division and governing body from our conversation. And we're going to make a list of how far away do you want to go? How big of a school do you want to go to? What type of city? All those things. And then we'll find a school that fits. And if that player is somebody that keeps talking about division or governing body, then there becomes a point where, I can't help you anymore. So I maybe that's my biggest speech, or that to the kids that might hear this is, it's all about fit, and you got to find the right fit for yourself, and you've got to take some of these other things out. I cringe these days when I scroll through Twitter and I see kids that are, I'm committing to a D1 program, and the D1 comes out before even the school, or thanking coaches, and it's cringeworthy to me to see some of that. So
Yeah, I would agree. Right fit is something I talk a lot about on the pod and when talking to players. And part of the reason I even started this podcast was that there's a lot of schools out there people haven't even ever heard of, and I wanted to make sure that folks could hear about them, learn, and hear from the coach from directly from the horse's mouth, as they say, and maybe make the best decision for them, or think about a school, or even like you just said, a type of school, what enrollment, location, whatever those things are. I agree. That's where I'm usually asking people to focus and not worried about the other stuff.
yeah. And there's a whole nother side to club too that you don't get as a varsity player. Varsity player, you're handed your schedule, you're handed your uniforms, you're taken to games. And one of the things that it becomes very easy for me to write letters of recommendation after college for a lot of my players, because they were the president of the team. So they were responsible for our schedule. Somebody else was responsible for logistics at nationals. How many rooms do we need? How are we getting from the airport to the hotel in a city that we've never been to? Things like that, where they get ownership over that. And as much of a control freak as most coaches are, and me included, that's where I've had to take a step back and let them have those things, still try to advise and say, hey, maybe that's not the right way to go about this. Think about this. But it gives them that whole other side of the college experience that they can use on a resume. And the number of players that I've had come back to me after an interview and be like, all we talked about was club soccer the entire time. They didn't ask me about my academics, and it's great to hear, because then they can speak to the leadership attributes that they've developed and some of the other things they've done.
No, and I think that's wonderful, because it is really a player driven entity, right? As you said, and it's I came in as the old guy, as the grad student, but it was great because the guys that were in charge of the club, they ran everything. They had, like you said, had the buses, had the schedules, did everything that needed to be done. And with me in grad school, I didn't have as much time as those guys did with their with being able to contribute in that arena for the team. Yeah. But it was great to be able to make those friendships, those bonds, travel together, like you said, to some schools that I mean, I remember, I don't know if you guys have played up at the Northwestern field right there on Lake Michigan, but you know, that's a cool site. That is a cool place to be. And it's just another one of those college experiences that, okay, maybe you didn't, get to play on the main varsity D1 team or whatever, but
Mm.
there are those options available. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because I think we probably both agree it doesn't get talked about a lot.
No,
Or what does get talked about, people just assume it's intramurals, right?
yeah,
It's one sorority playing the other sorority on a Tuesday night in the rec center, and that's just not the case. So um,
yeah. I think I've brought some players out locally from our youth club to see what the level is like, and they're all very surprised that club soccer at the college level is being played at that competitive of a level. And when we get to nationals, like I said, within our region, there's a big difference between some of the bottom schools that maybe don't have a coach, don't take it quite as seriously, up to the top schools like Michigan, Michigan State, Grand Valley here in Michigan. Ohio State has a very good women's program. Um, we're seeing more and more teams come up too. I mean, we're adding more teams, it seems like every year, but the depth is getting better. But then across, we hit nationals, and you've got UCSB, who won 5 straight national titles at one point, actually until we won ours in 2012, and we're able to stop that run. But you know, Cal Poly that won this year, there's D1 athletes out on that field in those games, and they are very, very highly competitive games and skillful games. And like you said, that's why I wanted to come on here, and I was excited that you asked me to, because I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of players that just aren't aware of it, whether it's their youth clubs aren't aware of it, their parents didn't know about it. But I think if you reach out to your network, you're going to find somebody that played club sports in college, and they can talk to you about the experience. Like myself, I played rugby for University of Wisconsin Milwaukee as a club player. We played right on the lake, on Lake Michigan is where our pitch was, and 7 guys shoved into a little Silhouette minivan driving down to Savannah, Georgia for a tournament. Those experiences, those are the things I remember, and so I'm glad I can kind of give some of that back too now.
No, it's amazing. Well, Coach, I really do appreciate the time and the insights, and hopefully this will help people understand a little bit more about the club soccer environment and maybe make the right choice and find the right fit for them. So I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for getting it out there. I appreciate it, and I know our girls will be excited when they get to hear that I was on here talking about them. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, best of luck, Coach. Thanks.
Thanks.